Thanks again for staying with Africa News Network First Fast Live. My name is Cindy Mabi. Good evening to you. A blame game over the May Day debacle among the alliance partners. COSATU hits out at the ANC for blaming the Federation for the May Day fiasco. The Federation is miffed over the ANC blaming alliance partners, indulging in premature succession debate and outlining their leadership preferences for the disruptions at COSATU's May Day rally in Mangaung. COSATU openly backed Ramaphosa as its presidential choice. ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa says the premature succession preferences is leading to divisions within the alliance. COSATU says it will convene an urgent special central committee meeting to deal with the aftermath of the chaos at the Bloemfontein event.
There is a sentiment from some of the affiliates that not only should we have called for President Jacob Zuma to step down, but we should have banned him from addressing COSATU events. We made it clear during May Day that we don't have a resolution that bans the President Zuma to be deployed as the president of the ANC to COSATU events. So now that there is that sentiment, and also any other issue that our members want to discuss, they are welcome to come and table that issue, the CC, a special CC.
In a statement, COSATU says events at the May Day rally reflect the deteriorating relations between alliance partners and the factionalized nature of alliance politics. And the Federation added that some crowds were rented with the purpose to disrupt the national event in Bloemfontein. It goes on to say, and I quote, "It's unfortunate that some in the ANC apportion blame to COSATU's decision to openly endorse Cyril Ramaphosa as its candidate for the ANC presidency. The ANC lacks the same appetite to reprimand its own structures that are openly campaigning in support of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. The ANC has dismally failed to provide decisive leadership on the issue of succession in the organization," end quote. The alliance partner believes these double standards and factionalized reasoning by the ANC are eroding the discipline that has united the alliance for decades.
We are still loyal partners and alliance partners of the ANC and the SACP. The issue of the alliance for us was resolved in the last Congress. Only the next Congress can change COSATU mandate. So from where we stand, we will continue to do everything in our power to defend and rebuild the alliance. But it's not just up to COSATU. All the partners have to come on board. The reality that we are faced with now is that there are divisions and there are fractions that exist all across the board, more so in the ANC. So as soon as those are resolved, we think that the leader of the alliance can help us, or can help all of us by really showing the way. But as COSATU, we are still committed to the alliance, but we also are not going to have unprincipled unity. Anytime we realize that some are abusing that, they can expect the COSATU will draw a line in the sand, that there's a line that we will not expect them to cross.
Meanwhile, addressing the media today on the developments, ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe says they discussed security arrangements with the COSATU leadership before May Day.
In preparation for that rally, we did meet COSATU on Friday. We did meet COSATU. It was myself and the DSG. We met Comrade Beg and Comrade Stomo, who assured us that things were under control, we don't need to worry. So it's not that we left everything to chances. We didn't leave things to chances. We met COSATU. We discussed in details that, listen, the environment looks very polluted. What should we expect? And they assured us. And I think in our presence, the General Secretary of COSATU phoned the Provincial Secretary of the Free State that there was nothing to worry about, things are under control. So everything that happened on Monday did take us by surprise after those assurances.
ANC NEC member Edna Molewa says it wasn't just the ANC president, but the party as a whole was insulted at the COSATU May Day rally in Mangaung. And speaking to ANN7, Molewa says she is one of the founding members of COSATU, but the way the ruling alliance partner is behaving now is unprecedented.
You know that May Day, May the 1st, has always been a national event to which the president spoke. But in 2017, the president did not speak at the May Day rally event. COSATU and SACP had been calling for the president to step down. Do you think there is a malicious hand in attempting to divide the alliance?
I am very certain something very big is wrong there. I mean, I am one of the founding members of COSATU. I don't know this COSATU. That I could never ever imagine that a COSATU would say at a rally, president of the ANC, the leader of alliance, doesn't speak. By the way, let me also put it this way. It's not President Zuma who's not being allowed to speak. It's the ANC that's not being allowed to speak, because he has been sent there by the African National Congress. What does it say? And I'm glad that many of our leaders have actually, from the SACP, from COSATU themselves, have actually pronounced, especially the leaders in Free State, that this is so wrong and they regret what has happened. However, I think we need to go back to the drawing board because something big is happening.
Studio is Tshepo Kgadima, political analyst. Tshepo, good evening to you and welcome to the show. I mean, this apportioning blame and pointing fingers doesn't help the alliance. They speak in forked tongues and mandashing all over the place. Is this the beginning of the end, in your view?
There are those that think that perhaps maybe there is hope. They can continue to paper this. It reminds me when I was growing up, there used to be the panel beaters of cars used to use a product called polyfiller, which would make the car shine just for a few days. And then as the scorching sun hits that car, the cracks are apparent. And that's really what is happening. It's no longer feasible for this alliance to continue for a number of factors. If we look at the speech, the famous speech made by O.R. Tambo in 1981 at the SACP celebration or anniversary in London, those conditions, those circumstances no longer apply in terms of where the country has moved and some of the developments that have happened in terms of the nature and format of a country that now we are. So when you look at it, and also when you look at the labor movement, COSATU is no longer the only game in town. COSATU effectively have lost that black monopoly unionist position that they had for many, many years. There are new federations that are coming up, and one of the biggest ones that has just come up, which is the biggest challenger, is SAFTU. When you look at the other union that is not within the any federation, but also a very prominent player, AMCU, for example, they have taken a position to be apolitical, and one should be asking questions to say, well, for how long? If you look at the SACP, by their own admission, they believe that if they were to be in contesting national elections, they will end up with 3%. On the other hand, we are seeing a labor federation such as COSATU that any other time that's really speaking to the public is speaking on politics and not speaking on issues of their core business, being that of labor, and ensuring that the workers of this country can actually continue to rely on the employment that they are being offered, and also to say, well, what extent will COSATU effectively evolve, because the future of work is such that we are going to see less and less unionized members. So what does that mean for the labor movement and for the union organization overall? And the more they spend time in politics, they are missing out a greatest opportunity or golden opportunity to really secure future employment for their workers. And for the ANC, how long can the leadership continue to hope and pray that the alliance is formidable, the alliance is the best? If you look at it, it says, what value is it adding to the ANC? I think that this is the year where we are going to see everything else fall apart.
But also the argument from COSATU saying that they're not necessarily calling for Zuma to step down as the president of the ANC. It's just him in his capacity as a statesman, sending a further divisive message to members. We hear Stumo Dlamini say one thing and then with other leaders saying something else, similarly with the SACP as well. Who stands to gain if the alliance itself is weakened? We see relationships are deteriorating and all will suffer, I'm sure. None is immune.
this is a situation of an eye for an eye. They are all going to be left blind. If you look at all the people who are saying, Zuma needs to step down, there hasn't been one person who actually has come up with cogent arguments that support the call for him to step down. What are the real issues that we are dealing with in this country? We've got increased unemployment. So if you ask, for example, COSATU, let's take, for example, it was May Day, it was their day. The T-shirts that they were wearing were manufactured in China. And we have seen jobs in the textile industry being destroyed over the last 15 to 20 years. Tens of thousands of jobs have been destroyed. But you ask yourself, how is it possible that you can have civil society, political parties, as well as the labor movement continuing where something that they could manufacture here and therefore even reduce the trade deficit that we have with China, for example, by keeping those jobs here, they themselves are supporting that destruction of jobs. These are the things that practically themselves should have been leading. A COSATU, for example, should have been leading in preserving those jobs in the textile sector, and one of the symbolic but yet practical thing that they could engage in was to ensure that the tracksuits, the T-shirts, the regalia that they wear, and even demanding of the ANC that regalia be made here, and they could use their pensions savings to actually invest in those textile businesses that can therefore be competitive. It doesn't hold that China, by the way, is got slave wages. That is no longer the case. It's for that reason that we are seeing in China that there is actually a growing middle class, and minimum wages are continuing to increase in China. So it means it is possible for South Africa to do that. But who's to lead that? But for as long as you have a COSATU and all others that are focusing on really talking politics and not really coming up to the fore with practical solutions for their own core constituency, there is absolutely no hope for them. There are a number of things that I think they could be engaged in, which they are not engaging in. And the alliance, as it stands today, anybody else who's saying, look, this alliance is strong, this alliance can endure these challenges, that person probably thinks that denial is just an Egyptian river.
We are prisoners of hope, and you've just punctured, or rather taken the wind out of the sail. Sizwe Pamla is COSATU's spokesperson. Mr. Pamla, thanks so much for your time. Our guest here saying that COSATU essentially betrayed its mandate, and you're fighting for relevance in a political space where you have no business being. What's your response?
If it wasn't so tragic, I would be laughing. Your guest is trying too hard. Look, for the last 31 years, COSATU has been participating in politics. It didn't start now. People, for some reason, because they want to defend President Jacob Zuma, they pretend as if we only started talking politics now. For the last 31 years, we've been talking politics. When COSATU was born in 1985, we participated in politics. So,
but your main responsibility is to your constituency, which are the workers. He cited other missions that you could be, or crusades that you could be involved in, protecting the local markets, for example, and protecting workers.
No, if you want to lecture me, I don't think I'm interested. It's too late in the evening to really be taking lecturers.
I'm giving you the context of where he was coming from.
If you want me to answer, I will. But let me explain to you. I'm not going to take a lecture at this time of the night. So allow me to respond. That's what I said, to say, COSATU has been participating in politics for the last 31 years. Secondly, sex-based struggles cannot be divorced from politics. Politics determines who holds state power, who makes the laws, who controls the police, the army, the prisons, who actually is in charge of determining the policies that dictate our electricity tariffs, food prices, education fees, who is in charge of our pension funds. So if you want to believe that to be a gumboots union is the solution, unfortunately you are talking to a wrong federation. We have had this debate for the last 30 years about being a gumboots federation. Those people who fight on the shop floor, they wake up to realize that the policies that are being adopted by a government actually repeal everything that they've been fighting for on the shop floor. Everything that he's talking about. If you go and look at what SACTU is doing, the Textile Workers Union, SACTU actually owns factories that produce COSATU t-shirts. Everything he's talking about, the problem is that he wants to pretend as if he knows COSATU. He knows nothing about COSATU. The t-shirts that
I'm not give him a chance to respond.
Yes, no, I am trying to respond to his allegations, if you don't mind.
Yeah, but we do have time constraints, so can we give him an opportunity? We heard your point. Rekgadima?
Look, at the end of the day, I'm not lecturing him, but the facts are the facts. Today, we had Minister Malusi Gigaba at the World Economic Forum Africa talking about that this economy lost well over 160 to 180,000 jobs and only created 65,000 new jobs. And you got to ask, and Mr. Pamla is here, he can tell us, of those new jobs that were created, how many of them actually joined the various trade union movements, and how many of those members actually accrue to them. So the point that I'm making is this: of the jobs that are being created, we are seeing a decline in terms of the potential of membership of COSATU. And the question that COSATU needs to be asking themselves is, what are the things that they can be doing not only to protect the jobs? And it is good to hear that he says that every T-shirt that is worn by the trade unions within COSATU is manufactured by the trade union. I can tell you that he's going to end up with like a Donald Trump moment, whereby he was saying, buy America, and yet during his inauguration, he had memorabilia for his inauguration that is manufactured in China. And because as late as for this particular rally of May Day, I took careful attention to look at some of the memorabilia that is worn there and is not made here. If they are moving in that direction, they need to expedite in those factors. They need to really, because the issues that they've been raising, for example, if they were talking about that, okay, the contribution that they are making, we have here a country that sold strategic oil reserves. COSATU was there, they are in there. What advice did they give that we should not sell our strategic oil reserves, where now as a country we are that vulnerable? We've got less than 2 days of fuel at any point in time. What did they do as COSATU, being the insiders? What did they do with a situation whereby this country no longer prints money in this country, but our money is printed elsewhere? Because they say they are insiders.
Have to go.
Those are the real issues they need to address and answer.
Mr. Pamla, just final word from you. And I suppose in response, going forward to the elective conference, how the alliance is planning to unite the movement and ensure that discipline is restored.
Been to ANN7 discussing the issues of the Reserve Bank. And to have that guy asking me these silly questions is really tiresome now. I was there at ANN7 discussing the issue that the money is printed out of the country, that the Reserve Bank has to be nationalized. We have been there discussing the fact that the independent power producers are actually taking away jobs. NUM is rolling out a campaign talking about the job losses at ESCOM. And how come out of a 5-week strike at social development? How comes out of a strike in the bus service sector? It's totally unacceptable to have someone who actually pays very little attention about worker issues trying to lecture us on trade unionism. The fact is, we are not going to keep quiet on politics. People can forget that. We are going to do what we do best. We are going to manage the two. We are going to deal with worker issues on the shop floor like we do, but we are not going to be silenced by people who only accept our critique and comment when our positions favor them.
So this was never meant to be personal to you, Mr. Pamla. The question we asked is, going forward, how do you restore the movement in light of the elective conference and 2019 national elections?
Like I said in your clip, we have the mandate to defend the alliance. We are going to defend the alliance by actually speaking out. The fact that we have looked in that alliance and realized that the polarizing figure there is President Jacob Zuma. The fact that he actually dragged all of us into a Nkandla issue. The fact that he's actually being alleged to be compromised by the Gupta family, that is a problem for us. So we are already trying to rebuild the alliance by going for those people that we believe are not helping us going forward. So that is how we're going to clean the alliance and try to rebuild it.
All right, Rekgadima, the right of response to you very briefly.
Look, I think for the topic of the day and with regard to the alliance, I can tell you that the center will not hold. everything is going to break apart. Effectively, you cannot receive what you yourself are not able to give, or you can't expect what you're not able to give. The chickens are going to come home to roost. The very same treatment that they are meting out to the current leaders, the new normal will be that any other leader who another faction does not agree with, they are going to embarrass them. So we are in the boo season for as long as I think the alliance continues to pretend that the center can hold when it can't hold. Until such time that they declare that, listen, we will do what we need to do. The other party needs to actually go and contest the elections on its own, and ANC itself needs to cleanse itself, because itself has got challenges of various factions. Unless they cleanse those factions, they are effectively going to hand over 2019 to their opponents.
We're going to leave it there.